In the United States, there is a fierce debate about wildlife protection, with stark contrasts emerging between red and blue states. Red states, known for their conservative leanings, often prioritize economic development, resource extraction, and agriculture. Blue states, on the other hand, tend to emphasize environmental conservation and animal welfare. But how do these political divisions impact the protection of wildlife? Are red states more focused on industry and less on nature, while blue states strive to protect ecosystems? This debate has become increasingly relevant as the nation faces growing threats to wildlife. Habitat destruction, climate change, and overexploitation are just a few of the challenges animals face today. In this ever-changing landscape, the policies and priorities of each state play a crucial role in determining the future of wildlife. Let's first take a look at red states, where conservative values often shape wildlife management policies. In many red states, wildlife protection is secondary to the needs of agriculture, energy production, and economic growth. These states have been accused of rolling back environmental regulations to favor industries like mining, oil, and gas. For instance, in states like Wyoming and Montana, there's a strong emphasis on managing wildlife for hunting and recreation. While this can benefit some species, such as elk and deer, it can also lead to the exploitation of other animals. For example, the controversial hunting of wolves in some red states has drawn national attention. The wolf, once hunted to near extinction in the US, has seen a revival in some regions thanks to conservation efforts. But in places like Idaho and Wyoming, wolf populations are actively managed through hunting quotas. Many residents in these states view wolves as a threat to livestock and game species. As a result, state wildlife agencies often adopt policies that prioritize human interests over animal welfare. In contrast, blue states tend to take a more protective stance toward wildlife. California, for instance, has long been at the forefront of environmental protection, with strict laws to protect endangered species. The state has passed legislation such as the California Endangered Species Act, which provides protections for species facing extinction. This law is often seen as a model for other states. California also boasts an extensive network of protected areas, from coastal reserves to mountain ranges, providing critical habitats for a diverse range of animals. Blue states often pass laws that create buffer zones for wildlife, restricting human development in sensitive areas. These policies are not just symbolic. They're based on scientific research that demonstrates the importance of preserving ecosystems for both animals and humans. However, not all blue states are equally proactive in wildlife conservation. In New York, for example, wildlife protection has faced significant challenges. Despite progressive policies, issues like urban sprawl and pollution continue to threaten habitats in and around major cities. Moreover, debates over hunting regulations in blue states also bring tensions between wildlife advocates and local communities. While animal protection groups argue for stricter hunting laws, rural residents in some blue states see hunting as an important tradition and a way to control animal populations. This division between rural and urban values is a common theme in the ongoing wildlife protection debate. But what about states in the middle of the political spectrum? These states often adopt policies that reflect a balance between economic interests and wildlife conservation. Colorado, for instance, has made strides in both areas. The state has passed progressive legislation to protect species like the greater sage grouse, a bird that plays a vital role in the ecosystem. At the same time, it has worked to protect the interests of ranchers and farmers who rely on public lands for grazing. Colorado's efforts demonstrate that even states with more moderate political climates can create policies that protect wildlife while considering economic needs. The role of federal policies also cannot be understated. In recent years, the Trump administration's rollback of environmental protections has had a profound impact on wildlife. Red states in particular have benefited from these changes, which have eased restrictions on hunting, land use, and pollution. On the flip side, blue states have fought back, implementing their own regulations to maintain or strengthen wildlife protections. California's lawsuit against the federal government over vehicle emission standards is one example of how blue states are using their power to enforce stricter environmental laws. This ongoing tug-of-war between state and federal governments has become a defining issue for the future of wildlife protection. Red states, however, are not completely without their conservation efforts. Some states have embraced wildlife corridors to ensure animals can migrate safely through developed areas. States like Arizona have focused on creating protected routes for species like the jaguar and the Mexican wolf, which are at risk of extinction. Additionally, red states like Texas have large wildlife preserves and have invested in habitat restoration projects. The importance of private land in wildlife conservation is also significant in red states, where landowners play a critical role in protecting ecosystems. Through programs like the Texas Private Lands Program, landowners are incentivized to protect wildlife on their properties. While these efforts are commendable, critics argue that they are often insufficient in addressing the broader environmental challenges facing the nation. Many red states also focus heavily on promoting hunting and fishing as conservation tools. While this does provide funding for wildlife management programs, it often comes at the cost of broader species protection. In blue states, hunting is more likely to be regulated strictly, with a focus on species sustainability. These states are also more likely to establish wildlife sanctuaries and national parks, providing safe havens for animals. New Jersey's effort to restore its state's threatened species, including the eastern tiger salamander, is an example of successful blue state conservation. The state has implemented restoration programs and habitat protections to help the species recover. Similarly, Maine has worked to protect its iconic moose populations through the implementation of winter feeding programs and habitat restoration. While the policy landscape differs between red and blue states, the key challenge remains balancing economic development with environmental protection. Both sides of the political spectrum have a role to play in protecting wildlife, but their approaches are often at odds. In red states, economic growth often takes precedence over environmental considerations, leading to policies that can harm ecosystems. In blue states, while environmentalism is often prioritized, economic concerns can also influence wildlife management decisions. This complex relationship between politics, economics, and wildlife protection is further complicated by climate change, which knows no political boundaries. As habitats continue to shift and species face new challenges, the need for collaborative solutions becomes more urgent. Ultimately, the question of who protects wildlife better, red states or blue states, doesn't have a simple answer. While blue states tend to be more proactive in conservation, red states have made strides in certain areas, particularly with regard to private land conservation. The future of wildlife protection will depend not on political labels, but on finding common ground between competing interests. Only through cooperation can we ensure a future where wildlife thrives alongside human progress. As the country continues to evolve politically and environmentally, the battle for wildlife protection will remain one of the most pressing challenges of our time. No matter the state, the importance of preserving our natural heritage is something we all share. In the end, the protection of wildlife is not just a political issue, it's a moral one. It requires us to put aside our differences and work together to ensure that future generations can experience the beauty and diversity of the world's animals. Because when we protect wildlife, we are not just saving animals, we are protecting our planet and ourselves. The fate of our wildlife is in our hands, and it is up to us to ensure that their future is a bright one. The question is, will we rise to the challenge, regardless of political affiliation? Only time will tell.